Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned? Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Delvecchio. I specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support.
And I'm Corrie Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. Coming up on today's show, we have PR expert Geeta Nadkarni. She'll be teaching us how to build the courage to make your impossible dreams possible.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. It could be if you're a business owner, even as an individual, Geeta's going to have a bunch of advice. We talked to her off air, Corey, and there's some really good words of advice coming our way. Can't wait to talk to Geeta. I heard on the weekend you did see the Queen movie, didn't you, Corey?
I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, and let me tell you something. I don't care what the critics say. If you are a Queen fan, and I am a Queen fan, I cried 3 times. It's not a sad movie. Well, there's some elements that are sad, but I really thought it was phenomenal. And this actor, of course, I can't remember his name now, and I'd probably mispronounce it if I did. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, mixed reviews from the critics, but those that are, we'll call it the boomer generation, are loving it. So, I'm looking forward to see it with Stephanie as well. You know, Corey, this is our first Sunday with the New Times, and I'm looking out at the studio. Here we are, 5 after 4, and the sun is starting to go down. It really does take a toll on the psyche. However, I do want to mention, this is the ADD in me, it's 47 days away, December 21st, and then our days start getting longer, Corey.
But who's counting, right?
There is a silver lining. We are looking forward to
seeing the glass half full.
Yeah. So the mornings are a little brighter, which is great. But the sun's going down a little earlier.
What's coming up second half?
Yeah, very, very interesting. This is going to be part 2 of 3 on our Caregivers series. Corey, last week we had Mark Stolo from an amazing organization called Huddle. And this week, who better to chat with someone who's lived the experience and is now part of a program at McGill that helps others learn how to navigate the caregiving journey. That's coming up after the 4:30 news, and we will have the inspirational Claire Webster after the news, and she is an amazing woman, an incredible story, and now she's giving back and paying it forward, if you will, through this amazing workshops that she's going to be talking about.
Well, there's nothing like living the experience. That makes one the expert for sure. So let's start off. I am very excited about this because I've had the pleasure of seeing this person live and share her wisdom with me. So Geeta Nadkarni is a veteran journalist and a performer with more than 25 years experience. As a PR expert, she helps people all over the world stand out, and she also helps business owners grow their businesses to 6- and 7-figure incomes. But here's the thing, without sacrificing freedom, family time, or integrity. Here's a very impressive list of accolades. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, CBC, CNN, ABC, Reader's Digest, and she's also been a contributor to the Huffington Post, Entrepreneur Inc., and much, much more. Geeta, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome, Geeta. Thanks for joining us. And we must add, Corey, a very impressive list, but an NDG resident. I'm a fellow a fellow Montreal, living in Montreal. Yes.
From the hood. So, when we spoke off air, you mentioned something to me that I said, okay, this is how we're starting. You said to me, you recently came out of the closet. What did that mean?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I'm a cisgendered heterosexual woman, so I've never really had a closet really in my life. But about 18 months ago, I had what can only be described as a vision of this company that I want to build. And it was so huge and so audacious that I couldn't say it out loud. It felt like a secret that I needed to keep because it was so absolutely ridiculous. I believe that I am going to build a billion with a B dollar company that combines personal development, so coaching, personal development, becoming a more possible human being with physical products, whether that's apparel or we have a list of products that we're creating that don't even exist yet. There's no category. We'd have to create a name for them because they don't exist yet. And it took me several months before I even shared this with my husband, because it was like, who the heck am I to go after a dream like this? And recently I decided to stop hiding, because I tried to kill this idea. I tried to make it go away. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate. You've got something inside you that is bubbling to get out. It takes an immense amount of energy to keep it under wraps. And you are so much better served by stopping resisting it and just going for it. And recently, that's what I did. I have come out. I'm telling everybody about it. I've hired this crazy New York firm to help me do it, make it real. And so I know that the only way that I can create this company and help, because my goal in life is to help millions of people all over the world be more possible, to chase their impossible dream, to have the courage to go for what they want and to seek attention for it. And the only way that I can think of to do it is to do it and lead by example. And so here I am.
Well, it's interesting. You're talking about lead by example. And this PR expert, Geeta Nadkarni, who's teaching us how to build the courage to make your impossible dreams possible. Why not start with that billion, not a million, not 100 million, a billion? Why not set the bar really high and earn it 1 million at a time? Geeta, good for you. Now, you mentioned lead by example. I'm an entrepreneur and also a dad and husband, and you try to lead, but it's a big part of my life, lead by example with the kids and in business with colleagues. But you really take this to the next level in terms of leading by example.
It's funny because I used to do this very macho. My husband likes to joke with me all the time that I'm like the more macho of the two of us. We must
add that your husband is not only in life but also in business, right?
Correct,
yeah,
right.
okay.
He's my partner in business too, exactly. And so we like to joke. We've been together 14 years, but when you work together and parent together, that counts in dog years. So we've actually been together 98 years, or so it feels some days. Some meetings anyway. So what I used to do was what I see a lot of people do, which is to make the goal something outside you. So this $1 billion company, so to speak, right? Technically, a past version of me would have made the goal the $1 billion company. Now think about this. Billion with a B. I'm getting into apparel. This is a world I know nothing about. I've never done e-com before. I've never done retail before. I'm going to be in this gap for years, maybe even decades before I get there. And if I did that, if I set myself up like that, most likely I'm going to fail because I'm going to bail, because it's a very, very long time to feel inadequate. And that's what I would have done in the past. Now what I understand is my goal is not to build a $1 billion company. My goal is to have so much fun trying to build a $1 billion company that so many people jump on board that the company builds itself. That's the shift that I've experienced that has given me the permission to go for things that I never had the courage to go for before.
So interesting that you would say that. It's very empowering. I think when I hear that, I feel very empowered. You have many different companies or brands that you have created, online programs that are phenomenal because I've used them myself. One of them is called Impact with Influence. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So when I started business, I had taken my 25 years of growing up, and I've been a journalist since I was 12 years old. I've worked in multiple countries and so on. And so I was like, what if I could take everything that I've done, everything that I've learned about how producers and editors and decision makers pick stories? What is it that resonates with audiences? What makes them want to book you and buy from you and recommend you to everybody? That became Baby Got Booked, which is my do-it-yourself PR program for entrepreneurs. Then we realized that a lot of entrepreneurs, when it comes to making money, they freeze. They freeze before they get in front of huge audiences, and they freeze when it comes to raising their prices. And Impact with Influence was designed to help you overcome your subconscious blocks and learn the tactics that will help you charge premium and get in front of hundreds of thousands of ideal buyers.
It's very inspiring, Geeta. And, we're talking business so far, but you are much more than business. It's about individuals reaching their individual dreams, how to talk to employers, colleagues, even your kids, even your spouses. So if, we're going to be talking about your spouses, but if you don't want your spouse listening, okay, maybe perhaps send your spouse right about now on an errand and maybe choose somewhere between the 13 and St. John's as you're going to buy a lot of time there, because because we are due for a traffic update. So we're going to be talking about your craziest idea that you had that turned into instant success. But first, we're going to head to the CJD Traffic Center with Lauren Glazer.
Live Fun Rehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Serrato with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking with PR expert Geeta Nadkarni. She's teaching us how to build the courage to make our impossible dreams possible. And if you just heard David Bowie and his whole Space Odyssey thing, it's because taking risks, taking that step, or taking the first step. How do we do it? Right before we went out to traffic, we kind of posed that question. I cannot wait to hear the answer because you've told me there are some pretty crazy things you've done. So what's the craziest thing you've ever done that actually led to immediate success?
All right. So this was the undate. When I moved to this country, I actually came here with my ex. Okay. So I had to figure out whether I would, when we broke up, I was like, oh my God, do I stay? Do I leave? And right then I had a screen test, and the guy who did the screen test is now is my husband, okay? But obviously at the time I was it was an amazing screen test. What are you talking about? At the time I was like, I'm done with men. I want nothing to do with this, so on and so forth. But there was an undeniable attraction between us, and he basically invited me on. He was like, this was the first time he had ever asked me out. Okay, so here we are, colleagues, and he asked me out. And he was like, wear something warm, I'll pick you up at 5. Now I'm scouring my new immigrant wardrobe, and I'm like, dang, what do I have that's warm and hot? Like, I don't know. And I had this old Hasidic man's coat that I had bought at a garage sale. It was really not hot. It was warm, but it was not hot. Anyway, we go on this date. He brings ice wine because I've mentioned in passing once in like a 30-second conversation that I'm not a big drinker, but the one thing I wish I had more tolerance for was because of ice wine. I wish I had more tolerance for alcohol. He made spring rolls and guacamole. So I'm sitting there, my ears are on fire because I have such a low tolerance. And I'm like, this is the most romantic date I've ever been on. And he looks at me and he says, date? What do you mean date? This is not a date. And I'm kind of buzzed, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, what? You're telling me that you bring all your friends to the mountain and make them homemade guacamole and spring rolls and give them ice wine? Really? And he was like, well, I was like, look, I don't know. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm on a date, and it is the most awesome date I have ever been on in my life. And I suggest you join me because I'm having an amazing time. And what this really was about me owning my truth and not being scared to say, I'm vulnerable. Luckily, I'm really bad at dating, so thank God I didn't know what the right thing to do was to throw the ice wine in his face and get up and run and do something very Sex and the City. But I didn't know any better, so I was just like, I really like you. I really love everything that I'm experiencing here, and I want to be with you. And of course he did too, but I think he just balked at calling it in that moment. And I'm so glad I did, because here we are, a business, multiple businesses, 2 kids, like a dog, 2 cats, etc. later. And none of that would have happened if I had not owned what I wanted in that moment.
Well, you're listening to Life Unrehearsed, and that's PR expert Geeta Nadkarni. And this is a perfect example, Geeta, of teaching us how to build the courage, which you had, to make your impossible dreams possible. Now, speaking of possible dreams, you use the terminology often, be more possible. So what do you mean by that?
So to me, we all have something that we're telling ourselves, no, that's impossible. Like, I couldn't pull that off. I couldn't have that or do that or build that. You know what it is. Everybody who's listening knows exactly what I'm talking about. And most of the time, we don't go for our dream because of a bunch of voices in our heads, voices from our social circles. And that's why when we work with clients, the very first thing we do in Impact with Influence is we have a hypnotherapist on team. Because if I can shift your mindset and if I can help you fully accept yourself, if I can help you build so much trust in yourself that you can go to any situation, like I went to that date, and say playfully, this is what I want. You have to go for what you want, knowing that you don't know whether you're going to get there. But that's that's what you were meant to do. Your soul is here to be able to experience everything that comes from just the going for it, the journey. And what I remind myself on a day-to-day basis is, A, it's all about the journey. That's such a cliche, but it's so true. And you have to go on the journey not getting so attached to that end goal that you started with that you miss a much bigger outcome that is possible for you. What you get to is often not what you started off going for.
So how do you then suggest that people communicate so that they can reach that goal?
A huge piece of this has to do with really getting clear on who you are, not just what you do. There's a huge intersection there between the kind of person, like look at the stories I'm sharing. I'm a PR expert. Look at the stories I'm sharing. I'm telling you clearly, who am I? Not just my PR expertise. I could give you all the sound bites in the world, but that wouldn't help you understand who I am and what makes me tick. I think there's a really juicy place at the intersection of who you are and the expertise that you bring. And that's what's going to become magnetic to the people that you are meant to serve. And if you can communicate that.
That's PR expert Geeta Nadkarni telling us to have the courage to build your dreams. We're running out of time. One very quick, you want to get a message out there. And you've used the term, be too stupid to hear no. I love that term. What do you mean by that?
It's the same thing as the date. I've done this with my first job in television is, my way of looking at it is when you hear no, everyone's always going to hear no. On the way to doing something audacious, you're going to have the door slammed in your face a gajillion times. My invitation is to look at that and say, well, that didn't work. Okay. You don't take that as a soul-crushing defeat. It's not personal. It's not about you. It's just an invitation to play this game from a different angle and discover something else about yourself. It's not even about the goal. It's always about self-discovery and self-trust.
So when we get there, we identify that that's going to be the first step.
Well, to me, the there comes from inside you.
Okay.
You get to a certain place when you become that place. So, like I said, my goal is to build $1 billion company, but my goal is really, that's just a light in the distance that I'm moving towards. That just gives me a sense of what direction I want to go in. My real goal is to have so much fun learning who I am on this journey that I attract this bossy that helps me build this company.
It's a very good point, Geeta. I mean, it's you get too focused. I find myself, you're in your bubble. Like yourself, my wife, my spouse is also my business partner as well. And you really have to think what you're doing. It can't all be about business and you lose track of the journey, which is why you're an entrepreneur or why you're the individual who are trying to make things just a little better for your family. But enjoy the journey is what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's so true.
So we're just scratching the surface, and I just have to thank you. We started the discussions. Hopefully people are going to see how they're starting their journeys. How do people get a hold of you and more information so if they want to pursue this?
Absolutely. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to learn how to hack audiences of hundreds of thousands of people without having to build them on social first, go to babygotbooked.com. That's babygotbooked.com. And if you're somebody who is an expert, you really help change people's lives like our next guest does, actually, then go to impactwithinfluence.com. And this is where we put the mindset piece, the high-ticket sales piece, and the PR piece together in one package.
Geeta, thank you so much for being with us. Very inspiring. I really appreciate you coming in studio with us.
Thank you.
All right, coming up after the news, it's Caregiver Week in Quebec, and we're going to continue our Caregiver series with part number 2 of 3. We'll be talking about helping families navigate their caregiving journey through education and support with certified Alzheimer's care consultant Claire Webster. That'll be after the news.